What if the single most mocked, most criticized, and most infamous financial decision in the history of sister wives wasn't a decision at all? What if it wasn't a moment of weakness, a sign of irresponsibility, or the folly of a woman drowning in debt? What if it was a plan, a brilliant, cold, and calculated masterstroke? The key to a kingdom purchased not with a sword, but with a Victoria's Secret credit card. Tonight, we're not just talking about debt. We are peeling back the layers on what might be the most successful financial coup in reality television history. This is the story of Robyn Brown's $32,000 debt scheme and the twisted secret truth behind her Victoria's Secret bill. Welcome back to COCO Gossip, the only channel that connects the dots everyone else is too afraid to see. We've all heard the story 1,000 times. Robyn, the doe-eyed fourth wife, comes into the Brown family with 3 children and a mountain of catalog debt. The official narrative? She was a damsel in distress, a financially fragile single mother who needed a hero. But we don't deal in official narratives here. We deal in the shadows, the whispers, and the truth hidden in plain sight. The theory we are unpacking tonight is one that has been circulating in the deepest corners of the fandom, supported by off-the-record whispers and our own deep dive analysis. The theory is this: Robyn's $32,000 debt was not a liability. It was a calculated strategic asset. It was her entry fee, her audition tape. It was a meticulously crafted distress signal designed for one specific target: a patriarch with a raging messiah complex named Kody Brown. If your jaw is already on the floor and you're ready to see just how deep this rabbit hole goes, do me a favor right now, annihilate that like button, subscribe to COCO Gossip, and ring that notification bell. You are not going to want to miss a single second of this investigation or our upcoming deep dive into the psychology of savior complexes. Now, let's get into it. The bait. Crafting the perfect damsel. To understand the genius of the debt scheme, you first have to understand the customer. And the customer in this case was Kody Brown. What does a man like Kody Brown, a self-proclaimed patriarch of a fundamentalist family, truly desire? It's not just love. It's not just obedience. It's relevant. It's purpose. It is the deep, desperate, all-consuming need to be the savior. Think about it. In the world Kody has built, his entire identity is predicated on being the leader, the protector, the problem solver. He is the sun around which all the planets, his wives, are supposed to orbit. He's the one who makes the tough decisions, who provides the spiritual guidance, and who, most importantly, fixes things. A patriarch doesn't want a partner. He wants a project. He doesn't want an equal. He wants a disciple who needs his guidance to see the light. Now, let's look at the competition in 2010. The original 3. The OG wives. First, you have Meri. By the time Robyn entered the picture, Meri was already wrestling with her own identity. She was the first wife, the legal wife, but she was also grappling with infertility and a growing sense of displacement. Crucially, though, Meri had a deep-seated desire for her own career, her own independence. She wanted to go back to school. She had ambitions that existed outside of Kody's orbit. She wasn't a project. She was a puzzle Kody was growing tired of trying to solve. An independent mind is a threat to a fragile patriarchal ego. Then there's Janelle, the pragmatist, the stoic, the financial bedrock of the family for years. Janelle wasn't looking for a savior. She was often the one balancing the checkbook. She worked, she got her real estate license. She was the family's most consistent breadwinner for a long time. How can you swoop in and save a woman who is busy saving you from financial ruin? Janelle's competence, while essential to the family's survival, was a direct contradiction to the narrative Kody wanted for himself. He couldn't be her knight in shining armor because she was already wearing her own armor, and it was made of spreadsheets and common sense. And then Christine, the spiritual heart of the family, the primary homemaker, the mother to a brood of children. But even Christine, the fun wife, possessed a fierce, independent spirit. She was the daughter of polygamist royalty. She had opinions, strong ones, and she wasn't afraid to voice them, even if she often did so with a smile. She worked to supplement the family income. She was a deeply competent mother who ran a household of 6 children with practiced efficiency. She didn't need Kody to show her how to manage her life. She needed him to be present in it. Her need was emotional, not structural. She wasn't broken. She was just neglected. So you have three women who, in their own ways, are already whole. They have their own strengths, their own ambitions, and their own histories with Kody. They are established, complex, and to a certain degree self-sufficient. They were Kody's partners in building the Brown family empire, not damsels he found by the side of the road. And then in walks Robyn, and she is, by all appearances, a masterpiece of patriarchal desire. She is younger, she is overtly deferential, she speaks the language of submission and admiration fluently. She hangs on Kody's every word, but that's just the surface level. The real genius lies in the narrative she brings with her. She isn't just a potential sister wife, she's a rescue mission. She's a single mother of three, a victim of a previous failed marriage that, according to the story she and Kody have carefully crafted, was a painful, abusive situation. This immediately casts Kody in the role of the hero, the man who will give her and her children the safety and stability they deserve. Checkbox 1. Emotional savior. She presents herself as spiritually pure, a born-again virgin in the context of their faith, despite her divorce. This allows Kody to feel like he is not just marrying her, but spiritually redeeming her. Checkbox 2. Spiritual savior. But the final, most crucial piece of the puzzle was the one that Kody could solve with a tangible, measurable action, the one that would prove his worth not just to her, but to the world and to himself. Financial distress. It was the missing ingredient. The emotional and spiritual rescue could be abstract, but a pile of debt? That's a dragon Kody could slay with a checkbook. It was a concrete problem with a simple solution that only he, the head of the family, could provide. This is where our theory gains serious traction because if you look at Robyn's history, this level of financial irresponsibility seems out of character. We reached out to a source, someone who knew Robyn from her life in Montana before the Browns, and while they wished to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, they shared something that stopped us in our tracks. They described Robyn not as a flighty, irresponsible spender, but as someone who was always calculating and incredibly resourceful. A single mother of three doesn't survive by being frivolous, she survives by being smart, by making every dollar stretch. So how does a resourceful and calculating woman end up $32,000 in the hole, primarily from a catalog company? It seems incongruous, unless of course the debt wasn't an accident. Unless it was an application, the debt made her the perfect project. It was a vulnerability that wasn't messy or complicated like infertility or emotional neglect. It was a clean, simple problem. It screamed, "I need a man to fix this," in a way that the OG wife's complex, long-standing issues never could. It was the bait, and Kody Brown, with his hero complex primed and ready, was swimming right for it. The deep dive and investment analysis. So, if we accept the premise that this debt was intentional, then we have to stop looking at it as a liability. We have to reframe it. The $32,000 wasn't a hole she was in. It was the price of a ticket. This wasn't a mistake. It was an investment. So let's do what the Brown family has never been very good at. Let's analyze the numbers. Let's break down the single greatest business decision of Robyn Brown's life. The investment thesis from lingerie to dynasty. The first rule of any good investment is to know what you're buying. What asset was Robyn acquiring for her $32,000? Was it just Kody? Oh no, it was so much more than that. Asset number 1, the Kody Brown brand. She wasn't just marrying a man, she was buying into a prepackaged patriarch. He came with a belief system, a family structure, and most importantly, a divine mandate that placed him at the top. By becoming his damsel, she immediately became his favorite, the one who validated his entire worldview. Asset number 2, the TLC platform. Let's be brutally honest. At the time, Sisterwives was a hit show. Marrying into the Brown family wasn't just a personal decision, it was a career move. It meant instant international C-list celebrity status. It meant a guaranteed paycheck from a major television network. That $32,000 debt looks a lot different when you consider it bought her a primetime television slot. Asset number 3, the family financial pot. This is the big one. The Browns operated, at least in theory, on a system of communal finances. All for one and one for all. By marrying Kody, she wasn't just gaining a husband, she was gaining access to the combined income and assets of 3 other working women and 1 man. Her $32,000 debt was a drop in the bucket compared to the value of the shared family resources she was about to tap into. Asset number 4, the built-in support system. Robyn entered the family with 3 young children. Overnight, she gained 3 co-mothers and a dozen older siblings for her kids. The logistical and financial burden of being a single mother was instantly erased. Daycare costs, gone. Babysitters, a built-in army. This alone is worth tens of thousands of dollars a year. So, for a one-time fee of $32,000, she acquired a husband who adored her, a television career, access to a multi-person income stream, and a full-time support staff for her children. In the world of finance, that's not an investment. That's a heist. The psychology of the manageable crisis. Now, let's talk about the specific number. $32,000. Why that amount? Why not $5,000? Why not $100,000? This, my friends, is where the true strategic brilliance lies. If the debt was only $5,000, it's not a crisis. It's an inconvenience. Kody could have helped her with a payment plan. It wouldn't require a grand, heroic gesture. It wouldn't necessitate the complete and immediate merging of their financial lives. It wouldn't be a big enough dragon to slay. He could solve it too easily, and the glory would be minimal. If the debt was $100,000 or more, it becomes a red flag. That number signals deep systemic financial irresponsibility. It suggests a problem that can't be easily fixed. It might even scare off a savior. Because now the project looks less like a damsel in distress and more like a potential bankruptcy case that could drag the whole family down. It's too much risk. It threatens the entire enterprise. But $32,000? It's the perfect number. It's the manageable crisis. It's substantial enough to be scary for her, a single mother, making her vulnerability seem authentic and profound. But for a family with a television contract and multiple income streams, it's a solvable problem. It's the perfect amount to require a hero's intervention. It necessitates a grand gesture. Kody can't just give her an allowance. He has to absorb her, financially and completely, into the family structure to save her. It's like calling the fire department for a cat in a tree. It allows the hero to show up with all the lights and sirens, perform a visible and noble act of rescue, and receive all the praise without ever having to face the danger of a 5-alarm fire. The $32,000 debt was Robyn's cat in a tree. It gave Kody the perfect opportunity to play the hero, solidifying his role as her savior and justifying, in his mind, the immediate and total financial integration that would follow. The Insider Report, a bombshell revelation. For years, this has been a compelling theory, a piece of speculative analysis based on the evidence we've all seen on our screens. But recently, at COCO Gossip, we received a tip. It's a report, and I want to be very clear about that. The source is a former crew member on the show from the early days, someone who was there during the courtship and the financial turmoil. They spoke to us on the condition of absolute anonymity, and we have taken steps to verify their position on the production during that time. We have debated whether to share this, but what they told us is so explosive and aligned so perfectly with the debt scheme theory that we feel you have a right to hear it. According to this source, there was a moment, off camera, during the tumultuous period when the family was debating how to handle Robyn's finances. The OG wives were understandably stressed and concerned. The crew member alleges they overheard a conversation between Robyn and a family member who was visiting her, not one of the Browns. The family member was reportedly worried about the tension the debt was causing. And Robyn, in a moment of what the source described as chilling confidence, allegedly laughed it off and said something to the effect of, "Don't worry about it, it's the best money I have ever spent." Let that sink in. The best money I ever spent. The source claims the tone wasn't one of relief, like someone who had been rescued from a mistake. The tone was one of victory, of achievement, like a CEO who had just closed a massive deal. Now again, this is a report. It is backstage gossip. The person who allegedly said it could have misheard or misinterpreted the comment. But if it's true, it changes everything. It's the missing piece. It's the smoking gun. The best money I never spent isn't the phrase of a victim. It's the phrase of an investor who has just seen their stock go to the moon. It implies that the spending of the money, the racking up of the debt itself, was the strategic act. The value wasn't in the lingerie or the jewelry or whatever else was purchased from that Victoria's Secret catalog. The value is in the debt itself. The number on the bill was the entire point. This alleged comment reframes the entire narrative. It suggests that Robyn knew with absolute certainty that she would never have to pay that money back herself. She knew that by presenting this perfectly packaged, manageable crisis, her savior would ride in and not only vanquish the debt but reward her for having it in the first place. He would reward her with immediate, irreversible entry into the family's financial heart. Calculating the ROI, the payoff of a lifetime. If we accept this bombshell report as a potential window into Robyn's mindset, the $32,000 debt wasn't a cost. It was a capital investment, and the return on investment, or ROI, is staggering. It might be the highest ROI in the history of reality television. Let's do some conservative back-of-the-napkin math. Initial investment, $32,000. What were the immediate returns? Return number 1, debt elimination. The initial investment was immediately wiped out. Kody and the family absorbed the debt, so her net cost effectively became zero within months of the marriage. An instant 100% return, but that's just the beginning. Return number 2, TLC salary. Estimates for the Brown family's salary per episode in the early to mid-seasons range from $25,000 to $40,000. Let's be conservative and say the family was making $300,000 per season. As the fourth wife, Robyn was entitled to a share of that. Even if we lowball her share at 1/5 for Kody and the 4 wives, that's a $60,000 per year salary instantly. For an investment of $32,000, she secured an annual income that nearly doubled it year after year after year for over a decade. We're talking about a return of well over 2,000% from the TLC salary alone. Return number 3, my sister wife's closet. While the business was an infamous failure, it was still an asset. It was a venture funded by the family's collective money she now had access to. It was a platform to build her own brand, a vanity project that the OG wives could only have dreamed of. How much family money was poured into that venture? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, all accessible because of the key that the $32,000 debt provided. Return number 4, real estate and assets. This is where the numbers become truly astronomical. The family's move to Las Vegas, funded by their TV money, resulted in 4 homes in the cul-de-sac. Robyn got a brand new spacious house, just like the other wives, then the move to Flagstaff. While the other wives were living in rentals or modest homes, Robyn ended up in $1 million home that she co-owned with Kody, a house the rest of the family's resources were arguably funneled into maintaining. How do you even calculate the ROI on that? She went from being a single mother in debt to a co-owner of a massive real estate portfolio. The $32,000 didn't just buy her a husband, it bought her a share in a multi-million-dollar property empire. The verdict on the investment: initial cost, $32,000. Immediate return, plus $32,000, debt cleared. Annual return, TLC, plus $60,000 plus for 10 plus years. Asset acquisition, MSWC, housing, value in the millions. Total ROI, effectively infinite. When you look at it this way, the conclusion is inescapable. Robyn's $32,000 debt wasn't a financial blunder. It was the single most effective, high-yield investment of her entire life. It was a calculated risk that paid off 1,000-fold, giving her immediate, preferential, and irreversible access to the Brown family's entire financial and social structure. She didn't need a loan from a bank, she needed a storyline that positioned Kody as the hero and her as the prize. But how do we know this wasn't just Kody being a fool in love, blinded by his new romance? How can we be so sure this was a strategic move on Robyn's part and not just a happy accident for her? The proof, my friends, is not just in what Kody did for Robyn, it's in what he refused to do for the others. The hypocrisy is the key. The speed and enthusiasm with which he rescued Robyn, when contrasted with the years of financial arguments, debates, and dismissals he had with Meri, Janelle, and Christine, that's where the conspiracy becomes a cold, hard fact. And that is the evidence we will lay bare in the second half of this investigation. We will compare, side by side, Kody's reaction to Robyn's manageable crisis versus his reaction to the legitimate financial needs and dreams of his other wives. The double standard isn't just a smoking gun, it's a nuclear explosion that blows the lid off the entire one big happy family narrative. We laid out the explosive theory. Robyn Brown's infamous $32,000 Victoria's Secret debt was not a sign of failure, but the blueprint for success. It was a meticulously crafted, manageable crisis designed to attract a savior patriarch. We revealed the alleged bombshell from our inside source, Robyn's chilling, off-camera quote, "It's the best money I never spent." A statement that reframes her not as a damsel, but as a corporate raider in a prairie dress. But a theory, no matter how compelling, needs proof. A bombshell, no matter how loud, needs corroborating evidence. The ultimate proof of this financial scheme isn't just in the action Kody took for Robyn, it's in the pattern of inaction, debate, and dismissal he showed his other wives for over 2 decades. The greatest tell in any conspiracy is the hypocrisy it creates, and in the Brown family, the financial hypocrisy is a gaping chasm. Tonight, we present the evidence. We will conduct a comparative analysis, a financial audit of Kody Brown's heart. We will place Robyn's crisis side by side with the very real needs and dreams of Meri, Janelle, and Christine. This is the tale of 2 checkbooks, and it's the story of how a $32,000 debt became the poison pill that destroyed a family from the inside out. The proof? A tale of 2 checkbooks. Let's begin with the first wife, Meri Brown, the original, the legal wife for 24 years. If anyone had earned the right to have her needs met, her dreams supported, and her crises averted, it was her. Meri was with Kody from the very beginning, when there was no television show, no money, and no cul-de-sac. She worked, she sacrificed, she brought Janelle into the family, she laid the foundation. So, when Meri had a need, how did Kody, the great patriarch and savior, react? Let's examine the evidence. Exhibit A, the desire for education. Early in the show, and for years afterward, Meri expressed a deep desire to go back to college and finish her degree. She had an interest in psychology. This wasn't a whim, it was a long-held ambition to better herself, to contribute in a new way. Now compare this to Robyn's crisis. Robyn's situation was a debt incurred from, let's be honest, non-essential purchases. Meri's desire was for education, a clear investment in her own human capital that could have benefited the entire family in the long run. So what was the reaction from Kody? Was there an immediate, yes, absolutely, let's make this happen, we'll find the money? Of course not. It was met with debate, with hesitation. It became a family decision. It was framed as a logistical and financial burden. How will we pay for it? What about your responsibilities at home? How will this affect everyone else? There were endless family council meetings. Pros and cons were weighed. The cost, which would have been a fraction of the real estate they would later purchase for Robyn, was treated as a major, potentially insurmountable hurdle. Kody didn't see a woman to empower. He saw a problem to manage. Her ambition wasn't an opportunity for him to be a hero. It was an annoyance that disrupted the equilibrium of his kingdom. The contrast is blinding. Robyn's debt from past consumption is an emergency that requires immediate, unilateral action from Kody. Meri's desire for future growth is a bureaucratic nightmare that has to be approved by a committee. Why? Because a woman with her own degree and her own career path is not a damsel. She is a potential equal, and for a man with a savior complex, an equal is a threat. Exhibit B. The IVF agony. Let's get more personal. Meri's struggle with secondary infertility was a central, painful storyline for years. Her deep, soul-crushing desire to have another child for Kody was on full display. This wasn't about a catalog. This was about building the family, the supposed core mission of their entire lives. When the option of IVF was presented, what was the reaction? Did Kody, the savior, say, "My beloved first wife is in pain. We will move heaven and earth and spare no expense to help her"? No. Again, it was a family debate centered on the cost. The financial burden was brought up repeatedly. Kody himself expressed deep ambivalence, framing it as a risky investment. He openly questioned whether it was worth the emotional and financial cost. He even suggested using Robyn as a surrogate, a move so emotionally tone-deaf it's staggering. He turned Meri's deepest vulnerability into a logistical problem, a line item on a budget to be scrutinized. Now, hold that image in your mind. Kody, hand-wringing over the cost of helping his first wife have a baby for him, and place it next to this one. Kody, without a moment's hesitation, absorbing a $32,000 debt for his new girlfriend's past shopping habits. The message is crystal clear. Rescuing Robyn from a financial mess she created solidifies his hero status. Investing in Meri's profound emotional and biological needs does not. One is a power play, the other is a partnership. And Kody has always been more interested in power. Exhibit C. The Bed and Breakfast, Lizzie's Heritage Inn. Years later, Meri found a new purpose, buying her ancestral family home to turn it into a B&B. Again, this was an investment, a business venture, a way for her to build something for herself and by extension the family. And the reaction? It was, if anything, even worse. The family, led by Kody and Robyn, openly mocked her. They refused to help her with the down payment. They saw it as a frivolous and selfish project. Kody told her flat out that he wouldn't support it financially. He didn't see a business opportunity to invest in. He saw a distraction. He didn't see a wife to support. He saw a subordinate stepping out of line. Meri had to scrape together the money on her own, ultimately relying on her own income from her side business, a business she built herself. She had to become her own savior because the family's designated savior was too busy managing the portfolio of his favorite investment, Robyn. The conclusion for the Meri test case is damning. For Meri, every single financial need or ambition was met with skepticism, bureaucracy, and a demand for justification. For Robyn, a non-essential debt was met with a blank check and a hero's cape. Now, for the second wife, Janelle Brown. For decades, Janelle was the family's financial workhorse. She was the one with the stable job, the one who understood spreadsheets, the one who often put her own ambitions aside to be the primary breadwinner so Christine could raise the children, and Kody could so Kody could be Kody. If Kody's savior complex was about fixing problems, you'd think he'd be eternally grateful to the woman who prevented so many problems from happening in the first place. But that's not how a Messiah thinks. A Messiah needs problems to solve. Janelle's greatest crime in Kody's eyes was her competence. You can't rescue a woman who is perfectly capable of rescuing herself. Exhibit A, the perpetual backburner. Janelle is not a flashy person. Her requests were always practical, logical, and aimed at the family's long-term well-being. She talked about wanting a greenhouse to grow their own food. She talked about building on Coyote Pass. Her dreams were pragmatic, and because they were pragmatic, they were boring to Kody. There was no crisis to solve, there was no drama. Janelle would present a logical plan, and Kody would typically respond with a shrug and a "we'll get to it." Her sound financial planning was taken for granted. Her contributions were the bedrock, and like a bedrock, she was ignored and stood a beat. There's no glory in laying a foundation. The glory is in putting the gold-plated spire on top. And Robyn was always the spire. The family could debate for months over a sensible purchase that Janelle proposed, but Kody could greenlight a massive honeymoon for Robyn without a second thought. Why? Because Janelle's competence didn't feed his ego, it just fed the family. Exhibit B, the RV on Coyote Pass. This is perhaps the most glaring example of hypocrisy. Fast forward to the Flagstaff era. The family is financially strained, largely due to the purchase of Robyn and Kody's million-dollar home and the adjacent lot. Janelle, in a move of stunning financial pragmatism, decides to sell her house, pay off the Coyote Pass land, and live in an RV on the property to kickstart the building process. This was a legitimate housing crisis initiated by a responsible choice. She was homeless. Her child was with her. Here it is, the perfect opportunity for a hero to swoop in. Kody, the patriarch, the protector. Here is your wife sacrificing for the family dream, living in a trailer. Go save her. What did Kody do? He mocked her. He complained about the RV. He refused to help her set it up. He declared it a terrible idea. He whined about the logistics. He offered zero solutions. His attitude was, essentially, you made this choice, now you live with it. He treated her not as a wife in need, but as an insubordinate employee who had gone against company policy. Now, let's be absolutely clear. Compare this to the situation when Robyn's rental was being sold. Kody declared that a 5-alarm fire. It was an absolute emergency that required the entire family's financial future to be leverage to buy her $1 million mansion. He said he couldn't bear the thought of his tender-aged children having to move twice. So, Robyn potentially having to move is a 5-alarm fire that requires $1 million solution. Janelle and her daughter actually living in a trailer on their own undeveloped land is an inconvenience that Kody can't be bothered with. It's not about the need, it's about the woman. He didn't want to save Janelle. He wanted to punish her for her independence. Janelle's RV wasn't a distress signal he could answer. It was a declaration of independence he had to crush. This proves beyond any doubt that Kody's savior instinct is not a general trait. It is a highly specific targeted tool that is only deployed for Robyn. And then there is Christine, the third wife, the homemaker, the fun mom, the emotional heart of the family for so many years. Christine's contribution was immeasurable. For over a decade, she raised not only her own 6 children, but was the primary caregiver for the combined 12 children of Meri and Janelle. Do you know how much full-time childcare for 12 children costs? Christine's unpaid labor saved the Brown family hundreds of thousands of dollars. She was the family's domestic engine. She subsidized the entire lifestyle with her sacrifice. Surely her needs would be paramount. Exhibit A, the basement wife. From the moment Robyn entered the family, Christine's emotional needs were sidelined. But let's look at it through a financial lens. In the Lehigh house, Christine was relegated to the basement. She often referred to herself as the basement wife. It was a physical manifestation of her place in the pecking order. When resources were allocated, when attention was given, it flowed upwards, past the basement, to the new, shiny fourth wife, who had a crisis that needed solving. Christine's crisis, a slow-burning emotional neglect, was invisible to Kody because it didn't require a checkbook to fix. It required time, intimacy, and respect, currencies Kody was unwilling to spend on anyone but Robyn. Any request Christine made for more of Kody's time or more emotional support was treated as neediness. Any plea for fairness was treated as jealousy. Her contributions were expected. Her needs were an imposition. Exhibit B, the Utah question. Like Meri's B&B and Janelle's RV, Christine's ultimate breaking point was a plea that was dismissed. Her deep desire to move the family back to Utah to be near their adult children and their support system was a legitimate emotional need. But Kody didn't see his wife in pain. He saw a mutiny. He didn't try to solve her problem. He didn't offer a compromise. He didn't sit down and say, "You're unhappy, let's figure out a solution." He drew a line in the sand and dared her to cross it. He shut it down with absolute patriarchal authority. The family council, which was used to debate Meri's $10,000 tuition for years, was not consulted. Kody made a unilateral decision. The irony is staggering. He would act unilaterally to save Robyn, but he would also act unilaterally to crush Christine. It reveals the truth. The family council was never a democracy. It was a tool. When he needed to say no to an OG wife, it was a family decision. When he needed to say yes to Robyn, it was a patriarchal decree. The control group. The Robyn exception. Now, let's put Robyn back under the microscope as our control group. The debt, $32,000. Absorbed immediately, no questions asked. The wedding dress. Kody and the show foot the bill for a lavish shopping trip. The OG wives made their own dresses or had modest affairs. The honeymoon, an 11-day trip to San Diego, a massive expense in both time and money that was never afforded to the original wives, who were busy building the family and raising the children. The rental mansion. When they moved to Vegas, Robyn got a huge brand new house. Later in Flagstaff, Kody moved mountains and risked the family's financial solvency to keep her in a rental that was far beyond their means, and then used that as justification to buy her $1 million home. The nanny. And the ultimate slap in the face. In a family with 4 mothers and a legion of older children, Kody and Robyn hired a nanny. Christine, who had been the family's de facto nanny for 15 years, was expected to do it for free, but Robyn, the damsel, needed help. It was a move so hypocritical, so brazen, that it laid bare the entire charade. Do you see the pattern? It's not just a pattern, it's a corporate policy. The OG wives are treated like legacy departments in a company that's being restructured. Their budgets are cut, their projects are denied. Their contributions are taken for granted. They are cost centers. Robyn is the new acquisition, the hot startup. A blank check is thrown at her. Any problem she has, real or manufactured, is a top priority. She is a profit center, and the profit is Kody's ego gratification. The $32,000 debt wasn't an anomaly, it was the precedent. It was the event that established the new rules of the Brown family economy. All income is communal, but all emergency spending is prioritized for Robyn. It was the key that unlocked the family vault, and she has had her hand in it ever since. The verdict. The debt that bought a dynasty. So, we return to the central question of our investigation. Was Robyn's $32,000 credit card debt a calculated entry fee? When you lay out the evidence, when you analyze the hypocrisy, when you audit the emotional and financial transactions of this family for more than a decade, the conclusion is not just plausible, it is undeniable. Robyn Brown's debt was not a mistake, it was a masterpiece of social and financial engineering. It was the most brilliant and successful business decision of her life. She didn't buy lingerie and baubles from a catalog, she bought a controlling interest in the Brown Family Corporation. She correctly analyzed her target customer, Kody Brown. She understood that he didn't want a partner, he wanted a project. He didn't want an equal, he wanted a subject to rule over benevolently. He didn't want a competent woman who had her life together. He wanted a damsel in distress so he could finally feel like the hero he always believed himself to be. The OG wives could never give him that. Their shared history, their competence, their independent spirits made them partners. Robyn offered him something different. She offered him a story, the story of a brave knight saving a beautiful maiden from the twin dragons of loneliness and credit card debt. And he bought it, hook, line, and sinker. The $32,000 was the perfect bait. It was a quantifiable, fixable crisis. It was the catalyst that broke all the previous family rules about finances. It gave Kody the justification he needed to immediately merge his finances with hers, to elevate her needs above all others, and to set the stage for a decade of preferential treatment that would ultimately tear the family apart. It was a Trojan horse. It looked like a gift, a chance for Kody to be the hero. But once it was wheeled inside the gates of the family, the true cost became apparent. It irrevocably altered the family's DNA, shifting the balance of power and resources so completely that the original structure was doomed to collapse. The unraveling and the final bombshell. The fallout from this initial act is the entire story of sister wives for the last 12 years. Every argument over the one-house model, every tearful fight over Coyote Pass, every bitter dispute over COVID protocols, it all traces back to the financial and emotional inequality that was cemented the day Kody Brown decided to save Robyn from her Victoria's Secret bill. The OG wives slowly realized they were no longer partners in a marriage, but shareholders in a failing company whose CEO was liquidating their assets to fund his pet project. And so, one by one, they cashed out. Christine left, then Janelle, then Meri. They divested from Kody Brown Inc. But that brings us to today. And here at COCO Gossip, we believe the story is never really over. We've been digging into the aftermath, specifically the infamous failed business venture, My Sisterwife's Closet. The official story is that the business was a massive failure. The jewelry was overpriced, the website was clunky, and it quietly faded away, leaving behind a warehouse full of unsold inventory. It's remembered as another of the Brown family's financial follies, but we've recently been contacted by a second source, a source who works in online retail and claims to have been tracking the digital footprint of the business's assets. Again, I must stress, this is an insider report. But it is too juicy not to share. This source alleges that for the past 2 years, items identical to the My Sisterwife's Closet inventory, specifically the more expensive custom pieces, have been appearing on various high-end resale and consignment websites. They are not listed under the MSWC brand, but the designs are, according to our source, unmistakable. They are being sold quietly, piece by piece, through third-party sellers. The bombshell: the payment accounts for these sales allegedly trace back through a series of digital wallets to a holding company, and that holding company is registered to a single director, a name that is not Brown but is the maiden name of one Robyn Sullivan. If this is true, it suggests that Robyn has been quietly liquidating the failed family business assets and funneling the money into a private account, unknown to the rest of the family. It would mean the final act of the heist is underway, converting the last vestiges of the communal family property into her own personal wealth. It would be the perfect bookend to the story, a story that began with a debt that gave her access to the family pot and ends with her quietly draining that pot for herself long after the other wives have gone. From a $32,000 liability to a secret, untraceable asset. It's the kind of long-term strategy that would make a Wall Street vulture blush. So, what do we have? A perfectly crafted crisis, a decade of blatant financial hypocrisy, and now a whisper of a final secret cash-out. Robyn Brown didn't need a loan, she needed a storyline. She didn't have a spending problem, she had a brilliant acquisition strategy. This is the secret history of the debt that bought a dynasty and then perhaps liquidated its assets. The question is, how does a man like Kody fall for it so completely? What is it about his psychology that makes him so susceptible to this kind of manipulation? He isn't just a victim, he is a willing participant. His need to be the hero is the engine that powers the entire scheme. And that is exactly what we will be dissecting in our next deep dive. We are bringing in a psychological expert to analyze the savior complex and how it manifests in patriarchal structures. We will explore how a man's ego can be the most potent weapon a strategic woman can wield. You absolutely cannot miss it. So if you believe that there's more to the story than what they show you on TV, if you're ready to look behind the curtain, then make sure you have annihilated that like button. Subscribe to COCO Gossip and ring that notification bell so you are the first to know when our next investigation drops. What do you think? Was the debt a mistake or a masterstroke? Is Robyn a victim of circumstance or the shrewdest strategist reality TV has ever seen? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I read them all. Until next time, keep your eyes open. The gossip is everywhere.